Oh, I hope you've had a chance to try out the copy, that is the cp command, and the move or mv command. Um, Remember that when you use your live DVD, you can pretty much do no damage. You can move anything you want. All you have to do is reboot and all of those files reappear. The only exception, of course, is if you are creating your own report files for some of the labs, um, uh, or changing something else, some like writing a program and you remove it by mistake, well, you're stuck. So play around with the live DVD, try to be careful, and in this section we will actually look at a few more commands that you might want to explore, that you probably want to explore. You might want to be careful with some of them. The first command that we will look at is the ln command, and this is a way to create shortcuts, which is what which we call in Linux systems, we call them links. Okay, so the very simplest way to use this is to say ln, so that's an L, and then a source, and then the link that you want to create. So try to remember that ln, the source file, and then the link. Let's try that. It's clear. Excuse me. Okay, so we have a folder A in which we have folder B, folder C, sorry, directories, and then a bunch of files. Okay, and that's now. Let's say I want to make a shortcut for whatever reason. I want to make it in the same folder. I can do that. So I say ln mylist and I'll say shortcut. In Unix we don't say shortcut, we say link, but if you use the word link then it's kind of confusing. Alright, let's try that. Doesn't look like it did anything, but if you do an ls-l, here's what you will see. So mylist is the source. It's still there. It's the same. It's got the same modification time, the same size and everything. But notice this. Now there's a new file called shortcut, which is the exact same size as mylist. Then you might say, well, isn't this just like copying? Actually, no, because here's why. If you say vi mylist and say dd to remove a few lines. Okay. And so I deleted a bunch of lines using dd. I'm gonna write it and quit out of vi. Now let's do an ls-l. Here's the thing. Mylist now went from 204 characters to 79 characters, and so did the shortcut. If you had made a copy of mylist called, you could have called a shortcut if you wanted to, and you changed mylist, well, the copy would not have changed. In this case, since this file shortcut is just a link to this file, it's not a copy. If you change one, the other one changes too. You can test it. Cat mylist cat shortcut. Okay, so when you execute the link command, it looks like it's doing the same thing as copy, but notice that it's not actually making a complete copy. It's just a shortcut to the same file. I hope that's clear. So try it out and you will see the difference between ln and cp. So cp physically copies a source file into another place, into another file, and you have two separate copies of the same file. Whatever changes you make in one are not reflected in the other if you use cp. In ln, all you're doing is create another file name for the same file. That's a good way to think about it. Just ln just creates another file name. It doesn't actually create a new file. So if you change anything in one of them, either one, the changes are reflected in the other file as well. So that's a good way to think about it. So try out this simple example that they have you do. Okay. You can also make a link in a different directory folder, and that's usually what you use link for. So let me remove that shortcut. Oh, here's another thing to keep in mind. If you remove shortcut, my list does not disappear. So my list was the original file. The shortcut was a link to my file or a new file name for my list. If you remove the shortcut, this thing does not disappear. So keep that in mind too. Okay, so here's another way of using, and this is typically why you use link with the ln command. You say my list, and you say b/ myl, I'll call it something shorter. Okay, so nothing has changed here, but if you look in B, you will see this myl. Oh, another thing you want to look at. Remember we talked about the output of ls minus l and how there is this, besides the first character telling you whether you have a file or a directory or a folder, that is. So remember, folders have a D here, and then you have permissions, which we haven't really talked about yet. And then the third thing is a thing saying links, number of links. This thing changes when you create links. So since we just created a link to my list, the number of links field went up by 1. And let's say we remove, what was it? Oh, b/myl, which is the link that we created. Alright, so we remove the link, and now if you do an ls minus l, this thing went down from 2, because there were 2 things pointing to this file. One is itself, and the other one was b/myl. That number of links went down. So we can reverse it. Let's say ln my list, and we'll create a copy. We create a link in the B folder. If you do this, if you do an ls minus l, what you should see is that this should go up from 1 to 2. Let's make another copy. You can make any number of links. Oops, link my list, and I'll make one in C, myl. Alright, and then I do an ls space minus l, and now notice it went up from 2 to 3. Okay. Another thing to keep in mind. So when you create a file, you establish a link between the directory and the file. Thus the link count for every file, which is at least 1, is incremented when you use the ln command. Okay. There are a couple of alternatives to the ln command. One of them is link, and doesn't matter which one you use. I would stick with the ln. So you can say link my list a/my list. Cannot create links. No such. What did I do? Oh, let's see. The man page for link does exist. I thought maybe I did the wrong thing. File1, file2. Call the link function to create a link named file2 to file1. Okay. I must have done something wrong. But you should be able to use the link command to create a oh, I see what I did wrong. There is no such thing as A. I have to use B. Alright, my mistake. So now, if I say ls space -l, you'll see that it went up from 3 to 4. Link does exactly the same as ln. ln is a little bit more powerful. It does one more thing that link does not do, so I usually stick with ln. Okay, a couple of final words about these three commands: cp, mv, and ln. This is copy, this is move, or you can think of it also as rename, and ln. So these three commands all affect file names and work in a similar manner, but they are different commands and they're used for different purposes. cp creates a physically new copy. mv, all it really does is change the file name, and it can move from a file from one directory to another directory. Link creates a shortcut. You can think of it like that, although in Unix you don't say shortcut, you say a link. ln creates an additional name for an existing file. Usually you put it in that additional name in a different directory. So the nice thing about ln is that you don't use up space like you would with copy. You don't use up disk space. Copy, if you have a massive, like say 1 GB file, you use cp. Now you create another gigabyte file with the same contents. Let's say you only wanted one instance of that file. You can create a link. Use the ln command and create a new file name for that same 1 GB file. So cp will actually make a physical copy of that entire file. ln only creates a new name for that existing file. Right. Okay, so let's take a break over here. Try out ln, cp, mv. If you have questions, definitely ask, and we'll continue with the rest of this chapter next.